Today's presenter for adults is Danielle Horne. She will be presenting on coping skills. Danielle is a registered associate professional clinical counselor. She describes therapy as holding people's hands while they find their feet. A lifelong learner, she holds degrees in business, ministry, and counseling. Her professional clinical counseling degree is from Liberty University. Danielle blends academic learning and life experience to create a supportive, empathetic partnership with her clients. She survived divorce, layoffs, and trauma. She shares tools that have helped her with her clients. Danielle provides therapy in individual and group formats. She supports people experiencing issues with self-worth, relationships, communication, couples conflict, depression, anxiety, and trauma. She is supervised by Kristen Hannon and Valerie Dole. Without further ado, Danielle Horne.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome. I'm glad to be here today. I'd like to thank Monique and Lawrence House for giving me this opportunity to bring this time with you on coping, calming, and boundaries. So we're going to touch on what boundaries are. We're going to touch on self-awareness, some how your resources are boundaries as well. The ability to say no, because some people struggle with that. Stress management techniques and working within your boundaries, and then coping, calming, and sleep. So what is a boundary? Boundaries are you regulating your relationship with yourself, you managing your time, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors and impulses. See, all these things are connected because you may be thinking, I don't have time to, manage these thoughts and emotions. It just comes out. Well, what's going to happen is that your thoughts, your emotions, everything, it's going to show. And you're going to end up showing how you feel when someone crosses your boundary. So you're going to make time for it eventually. I'd like to get into some self-awareness. So, think about when the last time you smiled was, and how to create more of that. I had a moment where certainly last year, I contacted my doctor and I told her I was kind of worried that I might forget how to be happy. And I felt like this is something I got to do something about. I can't just let it stay that way. And so I began having awareness about my feelings and my attitude. So just being self-aware about how's my attitude doing today. In this next slide, you'll see a guy leaping because he has so much energy. And so having some self-awareness about what's your best time of day. What's the time of day that you feel the most energized? Maybe you're a morning person. Maybe you're an after lunch person because you're awake a little bit more and you've been fed. Or maybe you're a night owl. So the folks on the right have ran out of energy. They are out of energy for the day. So kind of circling, having that self-awareness about when is, and kind of steering some of the heavy lifting in that direction. And then another area of self-awareness is what area gets on my nerves? What area is the most challenging, or what's frustrating me the most? I mean, all of us have been in this COVID situation without a break, without a vacation, without any light or fun kind of activity. And so I think if I were to pick something that was on that board, that lack of holiday is kind of what's bugging me. And I'd be curious at some point to find out what's eating you guys. But I think it's important that we know that we're not alone, that, all of us have some kind of area that's a little bit challenging to deal with, and to, just kind of have an awareness of, where you might need an assist. Now, This next slide is about mood. Interesting that I was able to find the same person in this picture, but this guy's mood is shifting. And you want to take some notice about when is, okay, I'm getting irritable, or maybe I'm becoming distant, or maybe I'm just really, really tired, or, ooh, I'm kind of surly today. I'm kind of snappy at people, and so be aware of your moods. I'm gonna present you with some tools to kind of offset your mood and kind of let some of the air out, the frustration out. So I think that'll be really helpful for you. And so another form of awareness is task awareness. Task awareness. So one of the things I think about is, does it have to be done at all? Does this, whatever this task is, does it have to be done at all? If I were trying to sell my condo, there's like a little railing just above the floor that, the molding. If that's not dusted, it wouldn't prevent the sale of property. Does it need to be done at all? Another facet of task awareness is, does it need to be done right now? Something may catch my eye, but I'm on the way out the door. I need to make my appointment on time. So maybe not right now. And trying to do something in a different moment is kind of one of the things that creates stress. So does it have to be done at all? Does it have to be done right now? And then does it have to be done by you? Sometimes we feel like if I don't handle it, it's not going to get done. Maybe we could delegate it. Maybe we could walk someone through it so that we can have some assistance and give ourselves a break. So does it have to be done at all? Does it have to be done right now? And does it need to be done by you? And then looking at this more closely, it came to me that our resources are boundaries. We're bounded by the amount of time we have. There's only so much time in the day. So we're bounded by the frame of time, by our location. Someone called and said, "Oh, I'm in Gilroy. Can you meet me?" Well, I'm in Contra Costa County, so not not right now or not very soon can I meet you. So that's a boundary. Your family structures are boundaries. If you guys are working with kids, some folks have kids and their parents, so that takes up more of your time, and it means that you have less time available, and your energy is already committed to some areas within your family. There's financial boundaries. There's the boundary of sleep. If you've only had 4 hours sleep, teaching step aerobics is not about to happen on the 4 hours of sleep. So your resources are boundaries. Now, this is important because part of what breaks boundaries is people not having a strong no. So if you do not have a strong no, you usually have a weak yes. So what that means is you say yes to something, but you don't really mean it. And when you don't mean it, you sit there with resentment. You don't really want to be there. So be clear when with your folks that are asking you for something. When I say no, I need you to hear that, because when I say yes, I want to be fully committed. So underneath this comment, you'll see some of my Instagram posts about having a perimeter around your commitment, because you can't be everywhere. So your boundaries help you to protect your commitments and protect your peace at the same time. Hey, don't disturb. I've made a commitment. I'm going to stick to that. And I've committed as much as I can do and still maintain peace. And I think that's important. So I looked into what are some of the daily stressors that we deal with. This is from Get Healthy You, and they are showing 7 daily stressors and how to manage them. So as we go through the daily stressor list, you may think about which ones resonate with you the most. Now, one of the first ones, of course, is running late to somewhere, running late in the morning, and we we haven't had to do that in a while, but we're starting to get back to it. At least for some of us, 2 times a week. So when you are running late in the morning, it's suggested that you only focus on 2 or 3 important tasks, one at a time, and you give those tasks your full attention, that you avoid trying to do 50 things at once. Because the reality is, as you increase your volume of tasks, you could potentially shrink your how do I put this, your quality, your level of quality could go down because you're trying to do too much. So, and you may want to prep one thing the night before, and do one less thing that could wait till later in the morning, and see if that gets you out the door and on the road in a more peaceable mindset and feeling. Because getting it done is one thing, but if you're getting it done and your heart is like, that's a lot. So we want to reduce that stress level and kind of help ourselves, if you will. Number 2 is this long commute. And the commute times will probably return for our lovely Bay Area traffic, as I call it. The concept here is make the commute work for you, to use it as your personal time. You could use it for a time of inspiration. You could use it as a time to play maybe relaxing music. You could catch a funny podcast. You may want to be inspirational on your way in, so you're getting charged and pumped for your day, and kind of a mellow thing on the way home, or something that's funny for you on the way home. But instead, having that mind shift of, oh my God, this commute, instead of, okay, this is my time to kind of wind down and slowly unfold from my day. And number 3, the dreaded email. No matter where we go, whether we're working from home or working at work, those emails tend to pile up. So one of the strategies that's supported here is the thought of maybe dotting in a couple of times, 2 times a day, and then answering everybody at the end of the day. That might not be doable. If it isn't, what you may want to do is circle through with your group and say to them, okay, if you need a response, put response required in the subject. Put due end of day, kind of giving you a flag of what's a hot item, so you'll know how to prioritize things, and you won't end up eating your pencil like this lady in the slide. Number 4, and this one can be tough, resistance to your current emotional state. So a lot of times you'll feel a difficult emotion and you'll try to stuff it. You'll try to hold it down and hold it in there. And then when you do that, it's going to come out later. So the idea is to find a safe way to let the emotions come through you, and to recognize, kind of like, that's why I picked this cloud picture, that emotions are kind of like a cloud. They kind of drift, they can drift by. Some last a little bit longer than others, but to recognize that emotions will come and they will go, and instead of burdening yourself with, I should be feeling this way, or trying to make yourself feel a particular way, to allow yourself to have that grace and that space to say, this is how I feel in this moment. And we're going to talk a little bit further about different safe ways to let those emotions out, so you're not bottled up and walking around with them. Number 5. Woo, this is conflict here. So these folks are locking horns, and the idea about dealing with conflict is finding ways to de-escalate it, to scale it down. And what's being recommended here is to just take a breath. The 4, 7, and 8 is like breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7, and exhale it out for 8. You know, to do that like a good 2 to 3 times so that you can calm yourself down. What actually happens is when you get angry, there's a fight or flight system that goes on inside the brain. So the front part of the brain is where you're making your ideas, you're being rational, you're thinking things through, and you're getting blood and oxygen to that area. What happens when you get triggered is that all of that blood and oxygen drains and falls into the back of your head. And back there, it's just like fight, flight, or freeze. So you get in a corner and you square off, or you cut and run, or you just kind of detach from people. And so getting that oxygen into you, that's why people are saying breathe. That oxygen brings the front part of your thinking person online, that part of the brain that thinks things through. It brings it back online. So this is another way to kind of rejuvenate yourself and give yourself that oxygen that you need so that you can make your statement without necessarily breaking the relationship. Number 6 thing that people are dealing with for daily stress is being overstimulated. And I got this picture because the guy's in the dark, and they'll say detach, go outside, go for a walk. They want you to come away from the blue screen, and you have your tablet, you got the phone, you have your laptop, and all of this. Quite a few of us are guilty for putting this stuff near our bed. So then, you're constantly bombarded with these images, and to break away from them so that your mind can kind of calm down, to calm down. So I have calming images coming up. I'm cognizant now that you guys are watching me on a computer. So I'm trying to make sure that you're relaxing, and I'm not going to do overexposure. All right, and this is a tough one. Number 7, tossing and turning all night. So this poor guy, he cannot shut his eyes, right? So it's such a circle because insomnia causes stress, and then stress causes insomnia. So you're just like going around, is it stress? Is it insomnia? Is it stress? Is it insomnia? So what's suggested is that if your eyes are still open after 15 minutes of shutting off everything and lying in bed and closing your eyes, and you end up with a face like this guy right here. If that happens, they're saying to get up out of bed and go to another room and do a smaller activity that you actually like. And then as you begin to feel drowsy, you feel yourself winding down, then come back to bed and then go to sleep. So suggested is, like a glass of warm milk, read a book, do something relaxing, that sort of thing. So I'm curious, out of those 7, which one resonated with people, but we may find out at the end. So the coping and calming section, we're going to talk about what it means to cope, what calm is, mindfulness, having no judgment. It's really challenging. Focusing on breathing and calming for the remote worker or remote learner, and then of course the importance of sleep. So coping means to invest one's own effort to solve personal and interpersonal problems. Really, it's about tolerating stress and conflict. Because the reality is some of these problems may not be solvable. They may not have a end result solution. They may just be manageable, the commute is the commute, right? So it may not be something that can be solved. It may be something that has to be tolerated. And the process of that is getting that oxygen. So if you think of being like in the ocean and a wave comes and slaps you over the head and you pop back up and get oxygen, and then the next wave is coming. Um, Building that resiliency is what's important. A lot of times we're chasing happiness, but happiness comes and goes. And what you want, the muscle that you want to build is resiliency. So let's see here. So in our next point of awareness is, how much are you carrying? Okay. So coping is about minimizing and tolerating stress. And first we have to figure out how much are we carrying. And underneath that, then there's another context of, how far do you have to go? So something that you're dealing with briefly that's heavy, you can look forward to, oh, this is going to end in about a week. This week is hard, but it'll end in a week. Versus, okay, I've entered a program to get a degree. This is going to take a couple of years. So the pace that you move through a couple of weeks is very different than a couple of years. And you want to think about when you're carrying too much, what can be delegated? What can I get help with? What am I willing to release? And getting that support around you. Just like Monique is providing support with her organization, and giving awareness today. What kind of support can I get around? Get structured around this, because this might be feeling a little bit heavy. So consider what you're carrying. Are you carrying too much? How far do you have to go? Is it manageable? And then calm. The idea of calm is just being self-soothing. So I had the 5 lanes because, the concept of just counting to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Having 5 breaths, slowing your pace down, slowing yourself down. In the Calm app, they tell you that if you do not lean into a particular mood, like once you get angry, that if you let the anger pass through you, you can actually calm yourself in 90 seconds. And that was so revolutionary for me because I'd never heard that before. And then feeling the difference of the before and after of taking 90 seconds literally to just set your clock up and let it cycle through 90 seconds, just breathing in and out and seeing how much more settled I felt. And that's something that I'd like to suggest for you as well. So within this calming area, there's something called mindfulness. So it's a state of openness and curiosity by focusing on the current moment with no judgment. So while mindfulness is usually known through like breathing techniques and that sort of thing, the real challenge in it is to let something occur without judging or trying to correct it. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So here in the slide, there's a picture of a cup of water and a glass with a crack in it. So the mindfulness observation would be, there's a glass. It has water. It's on a wooden table. There's a spoon nearby. And there's a tiny scratch on the table. There's a scratch on the table. But what we do when we see this scenario, our natural automatic thinking will say, oh my God, who left this cup of water out? It's going to make a ring on the table. It already has scratches. I told so and so not to put that, item there to scratch the table. He just won't listen to me. And we've already fell into judgment 3 or 4 times. So the practice is like a self discipline to just allow something to happen that wouldn't personally, I guess, affect you. So my example of that was I went to one of the food trucks that I follow. I go to the food trucks and there's 2 ladies there, and they are on and on and on about what kind of sandwich is it? What kind of bread is it? What kind of tomato is that on? What kind of lettuce do you have? And and I'm sitting there. It doesn't take 10 minutes to order a sandwich. And I'm starting to feel like, oh my God, I'm getting tense. I'm feeling the fire rising. And I'm realizing when I get back in my car and after I've had my order and take it to go, I'm like, I missed this opportunity to just there are 2 women at the food truck. They seem indecisive. They're making their selections and making their inquiries. The server is helping them, and just to observe this without any judgment. So that mindfulness, it can be a little tricky. That whole without judgment, but I do see if I had handled that moment without judgment, I'd have been less stressed because I was fed already. I didn't have a deadline. I didn't have somewhere to be. And you would think I would have been calmer, but the, the fact that it does not take this long, and here I am, you know, feeling my temperature rise, my frustration rising with these 2 ladies, and that was my opportunity to observe an event with no judgment. So, like I said, really tricky, really tricky. But I wanted to show you that. And so, in the process of managing upset, one of the uh, one of the strategies that's recommended is to um, when you feel those things coming up, to take a deep breath, 3 deep breaths. Pause and acknowledge your feeling. Whoa, I was really frustrated. Instead of saying, I'm glad I ate already. Right? Wow, I was really feeling frustrated. To give your feelings voice and a place to come out so that you're not holding them in. So, some keys that were listed for distance learning. I just love her bright smile and flowers and warmth there in this picture. Is aromatherapy. So, whether that's a candle, they have these steamers that you drop the essential oil in, and you can smell a good smell, and that can calm you down. Um, whether that is the calm toolkit. So what that's referring to is you having a list of resources when you know you're going to be either worn out or frustrated that help calm you down. So that might be a calming playlist where you play slower jazzy music or nature sounds like, crickets or the birds or the ocean coming in and out, or a waterfall, something of that nature. Um, Things that make you feel relaxed, that you can easily gravitate to, or things that can just shift your mood. Maybe you need a laugh, and so there might be some YouTube favorites that you have, that are like super funny, that give you that jolt that you need to give yourself some energy. But to set up that distance working or distance learning kind of environment, putting everything concrete in a schedule or calendars or reminders. Another suggestion was to have timers so that, like you have that transition, that type of school I haven't been in for a while. Like bell rings, it's time for lunch. Um, and of course, time away from the blue screen and stepping out, just going, seeing something that's three-dimensional, seeing people in person, an actual tree, an actual flower, instead of this kind of two-dimensional world that we're in. Um, and the other thing they mentioned was snacks. A lot of people are grouchy without a good snack. So sometimes a snack makes a difference. You know, a lot of people have been coping with carbs. But there's everything from carbs to trail mix to, whatever suits you, because you're doing things you need to. You want to keep your health in balance, but of course you want to be more intentional about kind of stewardship of your personhood. And am I stressed, am I tired? Ooh, maybe I was a little snarky, it's time to put me on a timeout. So just kind of being aware of what your needs are and how to make sure they get met. Okay, and the self settle self strategies list. So you've got a guy, he's not answering any phone calls right now. He's in the tub, he's got his headphones on, his head is back, and he's chill. So he's enjoying his moment. Some things that help you from like feeling wound up, for folks that have their family at home, and now that we can, you know those that are vaccinated can interact. Now you can get a hug if you, you can confirm the person was vaccinated. But maybe drawing, or taking that hot bath, or singing a song, or things that just help you settle down. Maybe you're too wound up, and so turn on some music, and having a good dance might be the thing that helps you to kind of get your energy moving through your body and get the tension out. So I'd be curious to find out eventually what some of the settle strategies that you guys have, or if you have suggestions that aren't on this list, so we could kind of help each other. So I think that will be interesting. And next, we were talking about the importance of sleep. I love the picture of this little guy because he doesn't have a care in the world. He's carefree and totally enjoying his deep, restful sleep, and making the effort to make that sleep happen is something that we have to take responsibility for. Sleep helps us to pay attention. It helps us to solve problems, remember. It can help us stay healthy. It gives us better physical performance. And the other thing that sleep can do is help our attitude. Some people are super cranky without sleep. They're a little crusty. And so maybe you want to talk to them after caffeine. But I do want to put that disclaimer in there that caffeine is not a substitute for sleep. So you do need good rest, and to keep that in mind. And so part of how to get good rest is to create a sleep ritual. So you have to prepare your mind and body to expect sleep. And what we try to do is stay up as long as we can and do as much as we can, which is the opposite of what we need to be doing. So we want to try to wind down an hour before you get to bed. So if you're expecting to go to sleep at 10:30, you need to start kind of winding down around 9:30. And you may want to create a boundary of, I'm not going to work after 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever your cutoff is. That I can't take any more um, in take have any more input coming at me, any more screen time. I need to be fully rested and pull away from that. So create a sleep ritual. Wind down an hour before. Turn your lights down. Turn on turn off your electronics or put them on do not disturb if you can, if you're not comfortable with that. And this is just a it's funny, we've been taught this as kids. As kids, you have your bath, you put on your pajamas, you brush your teeth, you read a book, and then you say goodnight. The lights are turned off, and the door is shut, and you have no choice but to sleep. And as an adult, we kind of just no, I need to do this. And there's not as much of intentionality with creating that rest that we need. And sometimes we feel like sleep is an interruption to our work, but sleep is not the interruption to your work. It's a foot forward on the day ahead. So it's not an interruption to your work. It's a foot forward on the day ahead. Your body has its own cycle of renewal every night, and getting sleep helps that renewal cycle uh, to be at its best. So, another concept for bedtime is mindfulness. So, sometimes how some folks wind down is they will list five things that they're grateful for that happened today. I'm glad this happened. I'm glad that happened. I'm grateful, you know, I'm grateful I have a place to stay. I'm grateful I'm healthy. I'm grateful my children are healthy. Um, you know, I'm I'm grateful I had a hard day, but I was able to let that part of the day go. You know, you it, and sometimes we're just grateful for our favorite snack or something that helped us to relax for the day. Another item that can be used during bedtime is writing 5 things you did that affirm, I did this well today. You know, I was under the gun, but I didn't lose my cool today. Or I took my walk today. I treated myself well today. 5 things that you're proud of that you did. So that way there's an affirmation of your self-esteem, and that's another form of self-care, another form of calming and coping. That's here. So just to recap, we covered boundaries, we covered calming, we covered coping, and we covered sleep. Okay. And so back to our favorite duo with the their big smiles. Um, what I want to admonish you is I know that throughout this pandemic, it has been so challenging. The pandemic itself was a traumatic event because it shrank our world. You know, I joke that the world was put on house arrest, you know, and you were constantly told of what you can't do, and all the pictures in front of you were limiting, and you're starting to see the same 5 environments, you know, and feeling the frustration of that. And so in the process of going through that, it was more of endurance or survival rather than um, enjoyment or resiliency. And so what thought I wanted you to think about is, if you have lost your smile, to go back and get it, because you are the protector of your smile. You're the protector of your spirit. And what affects you affects the whole house. So it's important for you to take care of yourself. It's not selfish. You are setting a good example for your children of resiliency and what that looks like. And you have done that. You've continued, you've persevered in the middle of this pandemic. You want to come out of it with yourself intact. So let me get to the questions at the end. You go back. All right. And we're almost there. Let's see. And then we had the slide about the time of day. The reason why I put these 2 pictures next to each other is not just that they're opposite, but I want you to think about, at what point in the day do I need a boost so I don't end up on the far right where I'm just like, I'm just exhausted and I still got some miles to go. So I want you to think about, when's the time of day that you really feel depleted, and what you can do to give yourself that boost so that you don't end up like completely wiped out. And to strategize about it, plan it, because it's clear that it's happening. And so you want to prepare. Okay. Are you carrying too much too far? So I want you to look at that. Take breaks, use your tools, ask for help. If your task is super big, break it down into smaller parts where it's doable. Schedule breaks, schedule times that give you oxygen. And I saw this quote and I thought, this is like the best thing ever. I give myself permission to do what's right for me. So what's right for you is making sure that you're able to stay level in the midst of things. It's kind of like knocking you back and forth, that you're able to gain resiliency to come forward, to bounce back. So give yourself permission for yourself and for your self-care. Okay. And I'm looking, my slide hasn't flipped. Oh, okay. Wait for it to catch up on the screen, but I'll read it to you. It says this: peace does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, no trouble, no hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart, be calm on the inside. So that's what it is to be peaceful. Things are just going to be swirling around you, kind of like a snow globe where all this stuff is floating around you and nothing is settled. But you ate a strategy so that you can get through that time. So I am I'm at the end of my slides, and I see that we have a comment in the chat. So, so there's skills. So part of how you would change that, um, I I don't know if you're looking for support, like deal with groups and that kind of thing, but ultimately think about how you're going to have to trade one coping strategy for another. And I always say people smoke to calm down, and they kind of drink to kind of numb their pain. So what I typically do, um, I'm grabbing some of my counselor resource. This is free online by your own and do it. But in terms of dealing with pain, emotional pain, one of the things that I give my clients is this. It's called, let me see, I get in the camera good. This is called a feelings wheel. You can actually Google this and you will see it online. And what I did was I got something, being given more work in the middle of the pandemic, managing people. As you can see, I didn't feel good about it. But and sad, but you can see here, there's like 50 something other feelings that come with it. The reason why I like this with your feelings that are hard, it allows them a place to go. So that way it's out of you. It's out of you and onto a piece of paper. And because you shaded the wheel, you shaded the feeling, but you didn't give a lot of detail about why you had the feeling and where and who so your business is still private. It's still private. You don't have to share it, but you still got it in your heart. So that's one way for coping that I've used. So some type of way, I print one of those wheels and I color it. And it gets out. I feel better. So that's one way, without doing anything that would be out of order or habitual. So that's one thing. And then the other piece, of calming to, a playlist of quiet music. A lot of times I played the sound quick. That shouldn't take long. Let me see. Go to YouTube, the Calm app. This is Calm Lake Sounds. So you could see the lake. So, and the other one that I particularly like when I heard it, it's not necessarily Black culture, but it was Native American, and I wanted to check it out. It's the sound of the river with the Native American flute. Let's see YouTube, but that's a great sound as well. Yeah, stuck. Oh, wait a minute. Let me try this. So many electronics, so little time. Let's try the phone. Let's see. And let's see, river. And let's see, river and food. Oh, there it is. That's one of my favorites. You became a coach. Sometimes freeze die free. Let's see. Yeah, there. see the image. So something really peaceful. That's the Native American flute in the river. If you type that in on YouTube, you can find that clip. It's just really calming. Because we live in a stressful world. So those are some alternative things that you could try that might be helpful. Okay. How to talk when you are in an argument with the other parent. So that does take some practice. There's a book called Crucial. They tell you is to keep making the environment safe. So that means that when you notice it's starting to get tense, I do want to hear your opinion. We're not agreeing right now. Maybe we need to circle back. Maybe it's that. The other thing I can give you real quick, I'll repeat it, and this is a four-prong approach to communicating with somebody. The first part is feeling and need. Thought, feeling, and need. So I'll give you an example of, I observe when you like say this is you don't talk to anybody, and I guess that's just how you are, huh? That's just how it's gonna be, And then that's certain. Why are you always doing this and you never do it? Instead of doing that, I observe when you come home that you don't really interact with me. You go right to your Game Boy or your Xbox. I start thinking, are we in a good place? Did I do something wrong? Have I offended him? Is he not into me? All these things. I start feeling either neglected or scared or disconnected. Connect with me. Maybe not when you first get home, because I know that you need to unplug, but like an hour after that, I would feel better and connected to you if we maybe made dinner together or we sat and watched it. Because I know you need to relax, but at least, two, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So that you're asking what your need to get met. Because usually when we argue, we're too busy making our point or kind of vomiting our the veracity of our feelings. And it's really challenging because when you're having the parental disagreement, you care about your child. And so instead of, okay, I hear your point, but I want you to hear mine too, so we can come together and make the best decision for our kid. So it's steering that. Let me get you see, I got all my props. I call this my and. Let me see if I get my and in here. So this is my and, the and symbol. And so letting this guide your conversation. It's not either or, it's and. How do I make my point and make sure that we stay on the same page? And getting a commitment from the other parent that let's keep our level of communication respectful as an example to our children, our child, as an example to our kid. Because if we're not getting along well, that's going to stress our kid out. I don't want to do that. I don't think you want to do that either. So having sometimes it may not apply, based on who you're dealing with, but there's an idea of was it generosity, and it's the concept that the person means well. So a lot of times maybe the person maybe they might not be all in a good place, emotionally or psychologically, and they may not mean well, but in the event that, as far as you could tell, they do mean the best for the child that you guys have together, to keep that in mind as well. That, okay, let's circle back, because we've fallen in name calling and all this other kind of stuff, and I want to keep it up here for the sake of our child, and how do we have this discussion, hear each other, and reach a compromise. Sometimes you're going to reach agreement, sometimes it's going to be a compromise. Compromise means that each party didn't get fully what they wanted. Agreement means we both sign off that this is exactly what we want to have happen. So sometimes when you can't get agreement, compromise is the best you can do. These are great questions. These are great questions. So, uh, are there any more questions? Are there any ideas that you guys have for coping and calming and boundaries? Are there any tips that you guys could throw in that you've seen and experienced?
The question is, I feel overwhelmed with everything that COVID
Getting
brought.
back to normal. So I did.
Yeah.
I just describe that as like being in the snow globe where everything is moving, and you're just like, where do I even begin? What do I even hold on to? This feeling of being overwhelmed because of what COVID has brought and really taken. You know, taken. How do we get back to normal with that? Okay. hmm Okay. Okay. So um, think about what your trajectory was. What were your goals? What were you doing before all this happened? And what do you want to have happen moving forward? So if you have a vision, if you have if your vision is just to simply go back to what it was, then begin doing those routine things that you were doing to your comfort level, the environment that you can control. Like, now that the mask is removed, you still have a decision about how you're going to handle that. For me, one of the things I used to love to do was travel, and I felt really confined by that. So what I did to add some normalcy back was to hop in my car and drive somewhere for about an hour and go look at things. I would go drive over to Pacifica or go over, that was my pseudo vacation, to figure out what it was that COVID took and how to give it back to me, you know, how to give it back to me. If I like visiting places, well, let me get my car and drive and go see something I wouldn't normally see and make that effort to bring it back. Maybe some folks have lost touch with friends, to circle back and call those people and say, how do you feel about meeting up outside, for a hike or something, again, to the level of your comfort, to put those things back in place as much as you can. These are great questions. These are great questions. I want to thank you guys for having me here. Ah, any more questions or thoughts or ideas or concerns? On Spotify, there's a woman's affirmation by Tony Jones, and her affirmations are very, very encouraging, and that's on Spotify. This is affirmations. She's pardon the some of the language issues, but she says, for a grown ASS woman, affirmation. So she has an actual on Spotify, which has been very positive, and yeah, she calls it a worth ethic, not a work ethic. Worth, worth ethic, and that she's building into herself. So that's something else too, is to make sure that you have your affirming things, because COVID has come and unaffirmed us in a lot of ways. So making sure that you have those affirmations, those things that pour into you, that's helpful too. I appreciate all the questions and you guys coming out to hear the presentation, and of course Monique for inviting me on behalf of Lawrence House.
I appreciate you for stopping by. This has been really informational because COVID has had us like in a psychedelic movement where we can't eat, we don't even know what to do. And so we appreciate you sharing those tips with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.